Solo travel has been the best thing I've done for myself, and it is something that I advocate for everyone.
I really want to travel somewhere on my own, but I just feel like I'm not a person who can travel alone.
Like, वापस आके ढूंढूंगी, and it's just like I wanted that sense of freedom. Travel is a privilege. Like, travel is something that you do for fun. It's more like recreation, and I think that our parents' generation isn't used to leisure. And it was the best decision of my life, especially to do that solo.
Hi everyone, welcome to our channel Social Untold. I'm Manisha and we have a special guest today, Manisha. She's a friend of mine and she is also a solo traveler, or should I just say a pro solo traveler. Today we'll be talking about solo travelers, specifically women solo travelers. So let's dive into the topic and talk about it. Okay, so as I just introduced you as a pro solo traveler, what would you like?
The pressure.
What would you like to say about it? How has your experience been as a solo traveler, and how long has it been since you first started traveling as a solo person?
Okay. First of all, I'm really excited to talk about this topic in general.
Yes.
I think it's been a really big part of my life, and I haven't had the chance to just speak about it openly. Solo travel has been the best thing I've done for myself, and it is something that I advocate for everyone, while also acknowledging that there's a lot of complexity that comes with it and challenges that come with it too. My first solo trip was about 10 years ago when I graduated from university, and instead of finding a full-time job, I was just so ready to go somewhere and explore, and like bought my first backpack, and I wanted the full backpacking experience, and I'm really glad I did it, but it came with its challenges.
So where did you actually go as your first solo trip?
At that time, I went to Thailand and Hong Kong as well. I had a friend that was living in Hong Kong that I figured would be nice as, like, you know, when you have someone to visit and it's kind of your starting point for solo travel. And then I did a few weeks in Thailand.
Wonderful. That's one place I'd really like to visit someday. Not sure if I can do that as a solo traveler, but we'll see how that goes.
Why do you feel you can't do that as a solo traveler?
I really want to travel somewhere on my own, but I just feel like I'm not a person who can travel alone. Not because I'm scared to travel alone or any other reason. I just feel like I'm someone who's very talkative and who likes company of someone around. But also at the same time, I don't really get along with everyone. So I need people that I like to be traveling with me.
See, I feel like a lot of people also start traveling solo because maybe they've traveled with people that they don't like. You don't always get along with friends that you're traveling with.
That's
And
true.
I feel that sometimes there's more pressure to get along with friends that you're traveling with, but then when you're alone, you have the choice. And all of a sudden, you have a conversation with someone, maybe you're staying at a hostel, you talk to them for 10 minutes, you realize, not what I'm feeling right now, and you can then move on. And that there's the beauty of that in solo travel is you get to choose who to talk to and who to not talk to, and like when to be alone and when to be more social. But I understand that it's also kind of scary when you are wanting to be around people and your people.
Yeah. I think it's very important for anybody to decide if they can travel as a solo person. Is the first thing is, are you comfortable being alone? What if you're not? What if you're scared to be alone? I don't think there are many people out there who would actually dare to just pack their bags one day and decide they want to go travel somewhere. I don't think, because personally, for me, I have traveled a lot. I do travel a lot, but even then, that decision of traveling somewhere solo, I've been thinking about it for a very long time, but it hasn't taken place, obviously, and I'm not sure if it will take place anytime soon in the future, near future. There's obviously a few other reasons as well. Coming from an Asian family, we'll talk about that as well. Every time I talk to my mom about it, the idea gets shut down.
Nahi.
Akele travel? Are you mad? Nahi, beta. Security reasons.
Yeah.
Where do you want to travel?
Yeah.
Is it even safe?
Yeah.
Nahi, बहन के
Yeah.
साथ जाओ.
Yeah.
दोस्तों के साथ
Friends
जाओ.
है
Why do
ना?
you want to travel alone? दोस्तों के साथ travel करो.
Yeah.
So many other reasons. How
Yeah.
did you convince your parents for that?
That is the ultimate question. I think that as like most women, and then especially South Asian women, culturally, that's not a like normal thing to do. And I find that yes, I am seeing more women do it, and at the same time, it's still not like yes, look at all these like Indian women, South Asian women just traveling freely. It's going to take some time. And I had the same thing. You know, I remember at that point saying, I'm going to go to Thailand. And I wanted a longer trip. I wanted the whole summer. I was like, abhi kaam karne ki kya zarurat hai? Like, वापस आके ढूंढूंगी. And it's just like, I wanted that sense of freedom. And right away, there were so many things like barriers, right? Ki अकेले क्यों जाना है? Friends क्यों नहीं है? Travel करना ही क्यों है? Like, what I think that is the baseline before anything. Like, travel is a privilege. Like, travel is something that you do for fun. It's more like recreation. And I think that our parents' generation isn't used to leisure. They're not taking time out for themselves. कोई hobbies ऐसी है नहीं. Like, idea है कि काम करना है, पैसे कमाने हैं, life जीनी है, right? So travel, I think, is taking you to such a different way of thinking and being that is kind of the baseline of convincing of why travel is important and how it will help me grow and how it will help me understand myself. And for me, solo travel was important because I knew that the ways it can translate to my day-to-day life. That, you know, if I have the weekend in my city and I have no friends to make plans with, everyone's busy, let's say. Am I going to say, kya yaar, main kuch bhi nahi kar sakti, you know, and feel alone?
Yeah.
Or can I still have the confidence to go and make my own plans and maybe go meet other new people, maybe go do my own thing? That is like a really big marker for me. And the moment I started traveling more, that automatically showed up in my day-to-day life. Because then I said, well, like, I went there for a few weeks on my own, तो मैं घर पे क्यों नहीं कर सकती, right? Because when we're traveling, our mindset is so different. We're meeting people easily, we're socializing, we will sit at a restaurant alone and have a meal. But it's like, I want to do that at home all the time.
I think that's how actually you can begin this whole journey of traveling solo. Personally, now that you're talking about it, I feel like maybe I should start doing that because I can't even go out within the city that I live in. I don't go out on my own. I need to have someone with me. Like for example, my sister, she's very comfortable going to a cinema. She goes to a restaurant on her own. She sits in a restaurant. She eats food on her own. She goes for movies on her own. I don't think I can do that. I've never done it. Maybe one day if I try doing that, maybe I can start from there, take baby steps, see how comfortable I am doing that, and then maybe one day I can actually book a flight, get out of the city, get out of the country.
Yeah, small steps. I think that's such a, like, you don't have to book a flight and leave the country to experience it. It can be saying, hey, okay, I'm going to take out Saturday afternoon for myself and go have brunch on my own, or I'm going to go for a walk on my own. And slowly that can then ripple into other things as well. And I know you also asked me, like, how did I talk to my parents about it? And I think that for me, it's like always been a negotiation process with that then. And if I say, okay, मैंने 3 महीने करना है, and then eventually through many conversations, it came down to 1 month for my very first solo trip. And even that was a really big deal. And I am someone who's pushed the boundary a little bit every single time, because the second I see maybe the door is a little bit open, I want to like slam the door open. And I think that most of us are scared to do that. We're not used to questioning the system. We're not used to questioning our family, our parents. We're saying like, जैसे होता था वैसे ही रहना चाहिए, किसी चीज को disrupt नहीं करना. And I think that we have to disrupt it. We have to disrupt it for ourselves. We have to disrupt it for other women after us, because I think it's a much larger thing that if I can be an example for other people, to me, this is like a much bigger mission as well. So over time, I think, I've seen my family slowly get used to it. I'm not saying they understand it or accept it, but they see that I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do it in a way where I get what I need and they also feel reassured through the process as well. But it takes a lot of communication to get there.
A lot of communication and baby steps.
Baby steps.
That's true. With me, I also feel the same. Like, my parents have been extremely strict all our life. We weren't allowed to go out with our friends as we were growing up. We weren't allowed to go for sleepovers.
Yeah.
Now they've eased down a bit. I wasn't allowed to travel anywhere without my sister, but I think last few years they've kind of eased down. I've traveled to a few places with just my friends. They actually started accepting that my sister's married. She's got her own life. I can't be tagging her.
You're now the third wheel with your sister and her partner.
So my mom used to say, "Oh, if those two are going somewhere, then you can go. If they're not going, you're not going."
Oh wow!
Then it came to a point where she was like, "They're married. Why are you hanging out with them all the time?" And I'm like, "Can I?"
Then they're like, "Go find your partner."
Exactly. Go find your partner. You want to travel? Find your husband and go travel. That's also one
Travel
of the-
करना है तो पति के साथ करना चाहिए.
What if he doesn't want to travel? What if you end up marrying someone who doesn't want to travel? What do you do then?
You're gonna make sure you don't end up marrying someone who doesn't want to travel.
That's true. That's true. I think that's also one of the problems that a lot of girls, especially in the Asian societies, they suffer with. Shadi ke baat karna. A lot of the things that they would like to do, they hear the same thing from their parents. You want to do this after you get married. Have you ever gone through that? I'm sure you have.
I've heard that statement many times, and I feel like I've started to find the humor in it now, thankfully. And I know that initially it's a lot to hear. I think that for women in society to constantly hear, "Tum akele kuch nahi kar sakte," right? You need someone, and you need a man.
Yeah.
Is just, I won't say much, but it's frustrating. And I think that we should feel angry about it. And we need to get past that as well. I know that, especially culturally for us, family is really important. Like, our values are always centered around respect and family and making sure that we're, living in a respectful and mindful way. But I just feel that if we're not breaking that pattern, who else will? And I'm going to have a great time with my future partner as well. It's not like there's the rest of the world is still there for me. I'm going to take that future partner to the countries that I've been to where I've had a great time alone. And I think it's really important for us to feel like we can do things on our own ground. And when the right person comes, we'll also do that with them. But I also want my partner, future partner, to be having a great time alone.
Absolutely.
Like, come with that baseline, and then we will have a good time together.
Yeah, definitely. So let's talk about your best experience till date. Which one was that?
My best experience to date. Wow, there's been some really beautiful ones. I find that the first experience that pops to mind is 2 years ago. I decided, and this was after I had made a big shift in my life. I had sold all my belongings, I packed all my stuff in 2 luggages, and then I decided I left my job, and then I moved to India. And after first few months in India, it was all very overwhelming and hectic. And then I came to Europe and I walked Camino de Santiago, which is a pilgrimage walk from Porto, Portugal to Spain at Santiago de Compostela. And I walked for 12 days, 260 kilometers. And it was the best decision of my life, especially to do that solo.
Wow.
And to plan that out for myself and plan out this idea of also traveling in a different way. You know, I'm not just like going to a city, or I'm not sitting at a beach, or I'm like, it was a very different experience because it meant that I was really taking time out for myself. I was walking in nature, I was walking through the countryside of Portugal, I was meeting people, and at the same time I was spending so many of my days alone, just walking and reflecting and processing, figuring out where to have my next coffee. It was blissful, and 100% one of my top experiences that I did on my own.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah, highly recommend going for a long walk on your own in a different, beautiful place.
Oh wow, 12 days? Oh my god, I don't think I can do that.
No?
No.
I feel like, okay, start with just one full day of walking. I don't know if you enjoy walking, but walking for me is a very therapeutic thing. And especially at that moment in my life, I really wanted space to think. And that was the best thing that I could have done. And I also felt like, depending on where you do it, safety is such a big part. Safety always comes up, I think, especially as like solo women traveling around the world. It comes up differently for me in different places. And I felt like that is a place like Portugal and Spain where I could do this alone. And I knew other people that were doing it alone too. There was a lot of support, a lot of resources out there for me to research. Whereas safety, like I'm traveling India solo right now, and it's not the same. It's a very different level of planning.
I was actually going to ask you about this. How do you prepare yourself, like safety wise? I'm sure there's a lot of concerns. There are a lot of people out there who actually want to do something like that, but then maybe safety becomes one of the big concerns to hold them back. How do you plan that?
Yeah, and I find that that's also genuinely why our parents are perhaps not feeling confident with allowing us to be free and solo. Is just things can happen, and the world is a weird place right now. And I really understand the fear that comes up, and at the same time I have to acknowledge that sometimes we have to face the fear and do it anyway. Like, what place is fully safe? Hey, sure, we might be like, अच्छा इंडिया में ज़्यादा कुछ होता है, वहाँ ध्यान से करना चाहिए, but like every place, you know, you could go to any country and people will still say, यहाँ मत जाना, इतनी रात को मत जाना. So I think for me, research, like a lot of research. I'm always researching, like, what is that place like? What kind of community exists? Are there other travelers there as well? Are there other solo travelers there? Are there hostels, guest houses, homestays? What's the living situation? So I think I spend, especially in places where I'm unsure, I spend a lot of time doing research. And then I try to see if I can find someone that I could potentially connect with there before I even get there.
Right.
So that might be through friends who might know someone there. That might be through Facebook groups. There's a lot of travel Facebook groups. There's one that's called Host a Sister, where it's all women, mostly traveling solo, where you can say, hey, I'm coming to the city. Is anyone there? Does anyone have a home there? And you get so many people responding. There's communities specifically for women that are traveling. So I think that's like a huge part of it, is finding someone there. You have to be willing to put the effort, but those networks exist. And then you have to have your own thing. Like 10 baje se pehle ghar वापस पहुंचना hai. Someone should ghar pe, you know, pata hona chahiye ki kahan hai. Like, there are certain things that I feel we should all like follow as well as women.
You have to take your own precautions.
Yeah.
No matter where you are. Yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
Okay, that's your best experience. What was your worst experience?
I don't know if I have. Wow, I feel clearly on my mind just has a lot of positive experiences, but there were definitely some not so great ones. And I find that, that comes in also different points in life, where if I haven't done enough research, if I was not feeling that mentally great at that time, then perhaps it's not that great. I remember being in Barcelona, which is a cool city. Barcelona is awesome. Yeah. And at that same time in Barcelona, I was working full time while I'm traveling there. And I was alone and like kind of feeling alone. right? And then I was trying to make friends. I was going out. I had joined a tour of some sort, and I just like wasn't meeting the right people. I wasn't connecting with folks. I didn't feel safe in parts of it too. And this isn't because Barcelona, but I think in general the circumstances didn't allow it to be a smooth experience. And I feel that at the same time, I'm able to really identify why it wasn't a great experience for me. So I wouldn't say it's my worst experience. Like that feels like harsh to put it on that too.
Well, that's good. You haven't had any of that sort of experiences. I hope you don't.
Perhaps I just can't remember them right now because I'm in my like solo travel is amazing bubble.
Maybe. Okay.
Have you had any experiences, but in travel in general?
I wouldn't say I've had any bad experiences so far. I think everything's been good, touch wood. I haven't had any bad experience so far. I hope I don't. Let's see. You never know. Okay, so any suggestions? Like, if you're traveling so much, I think there's one concern: how do people manage their finances? If you're traveling, like you said, you packed everything, you left your job. How are you financing yourself for the travel?
Yeah, it depending on how you look at travel, I feel if you're looking at it as, this is something I do for a few weeks every year, my vacation time, then it's different. Then you're like saving up for this experience, and it's a matter of like figuring out how much you want to save up for it and what kind of experience it is. I've been approaching it differently because I get to work for myself and I get to work while I travel. And that isn't always the most balanced act. And at the same time, I feel that I'm able to prioritize being in new places and feeling inspired by new places while still continuing to work. So I'm not necessarily going on these like, let me go on this 3-week trip and put work aside. So it's very much integrated into the way I do things. And I feel like in general, I understand financially, it's not easy. And I think that it's a matter of figuring out, are you willing to invest in this? Do you see the impact of it? Travel has made me more aware as a human. I understand myself better. I understand other people better. I'm more curious as a person. I get like really interested in different ways of living, different cultures. So if you really are sold on the benefits of it, then I think naturally you will put some money aside and have to compromise on things. Like, do I need to buy that cool gadget and go on that fancy dinner? Or am I able to put that towards travel instead? Of course. This is coming from a place if you have the means to do it. But that goes back to our initial conversation of, if it's not traveling to another country, let me book a flight, and that doesn't feel accessible, how can it come in small ways? Is there a road trip that you can do? Is there a weekend thing that you can do? Is there any way for you to change your environment, to see different things? I think the idea of travel is just also like exposure to new things, to get your brain working in a different way.
I've heard from a lot of people, in fact my parents as well, they keep saying, and I'm sure everybody has, you probably would have as well, my parents keep saying, oh, you should save up for the rainy days, why do you guys have to travel so much? I literally travel every 2 to 3 months, and they keep telling me the same thing. Like, what different feeling are you going to get by traveling every 2-3 months? Don't you get tired of it? And I feel like only a person who's not traveling can say something so ridiculous. Like, you need to travel to be able to understand how good it is for you mentally.
How do you deal with that when your parents say that to you?
I just ignore them. I choose to ignore them. Like, I don't want to listen to this conversation.
Priorities are different, right? If they were busy making sure that whatever they're earning is going to build a home or their family, then for us, I know that like priorities are really different, and it's such a privilege to be able to travel as well. And we can't expect them to fully understand that either.
That's true. So, you, as we were talking about it earlier, you've traveled within Asia, you've traveled within Europe. What differences have you found in traveling in two different continents, safety-wise or any other concerns? How different was it, your experience overall?
Hmm. It's hard to put it's hard to generalize because within Asia and within Europe, there's so many different experiences. So I could be in Thailand, in Asia, and feel really different compared to being in India in Asia, right? Like it's miles apart. Like Thailand is known to be really approachable for solo travelers and women especially. And the way people show up, they're used to a lot of travelers coming there, backpacking, staying there for a few months. And whereas in India, it feels a little different as well. And then Europe, I find that I generally come to Europe with less planning. Like I find that in Asia, I may be planning things out a little bit more, whereas in Europe, I'm able to show up and feel like I'm going to figure it out. So yes, there is I guess on the like deeper level, I do feel a higher sense of safety in places in Europe. But again, I don't want to generalize because you go to like Rome and then people are always telling you to be cautious and be careful with your phone and your wallet and where you're walking and not being in dark alleys. So those things apply everywhere really. And I think like all that to say, don't hold yourself back from like I have people that say, oh, I don't like I'm too scared to go to Asia or I'm too scared to go to India. And like yes, and there are still ways to work around it and work around the fears that might be present as well.
Okay, so do you have any recommendations for someone who would like to plan something like that? Like, what things should someone consider if they're going to plan their first solo trip? Any location in your mind, like financially, what is more like?
Mm-hmm. I feel if it's your first solo trip, I mean, a big part of it also depends on which part of the
Which
world
part of the
you're
world you are,
in.
yeah.
So I can't be like, go to Thailand, it's amazing. And a big part of it is like, okay, what is your financial situation? What can you afford to do? What kind of trip do you want? Do you want more nature? Do you want more culture, being in the city? Do you want more history? Do you want music? Like, I think like arts and culture scene. I feel that like be clear on things that you want to explore. It might be a mix of all of those things too. How much time do you really have so that you're not also rushing into it? I think that especially if you're doing solo, I think in general travel needs to be slowed down, but especially if you're doing it solo, like can you create space that for one day you're just like sitting at a cafe reading, journaling, watching people. Like people watching is the best thing to do while you're solo as well. How social do you want to be? Do you want this time to yourself, or do you want to be in a hostel where you have more opportunities to meet people, or you can join walking tours? So I think that also changes things as well. So I think ask yourself these questions on what you really need. What is your intention for why you want to do this alone? And if it's not the best experience, how will you navigate that emotion? It's not always smooth sailing, right? Travel in general is not smooth sailing. So I feel that like, are you willing to take in everything that's thrown at you as well and really be present for that experience? I think if you're doing it alone, a big part of it is just you're constantly listening to yourself. You're constantly understanding yourself. Do I want to do this? Do I want to not? It might be simple as like, is cafe mein jao ya na jao? Like it's like simple, kahan khao? And then you get to understand like, how am I making these decisions? Like beach pe baithna ya nahi baithna? Like इससे बात करनी है नहीं करनी, like, and you just every single time you have this check-in with yourself. And I think that if you're open to that, then you're gonna have a wonderful experience. And instead of always questioning ki like hi maine ye kyun kiya, like that's not the point. It's for you to actually just understand yourself better. I don't know if this answers your question, but I think a big part of answering this question is to ask more questions to really understand. But of course, the second you Google like best places to travel as a woman, you'll get such a long list. If you might say like 2 hours from London or like a flight to Asia. Like you will get so many options. So I could say like, oh yeah, Portugal, I find it really safe and there's so many options, or Thailand. And at the same time, it can depend on context.
Yeah. Yep. So any last message that you would like to give to people that are watching this video? To women who are watching this video?
Yes.
How do they go ahead and take that first step towards starting their solo traveling?
I would be clear about why it's important for you. Because I think that everyone is also doing this at different points in your life. Some people had the chance to do it when they were 18, and depending on the culture, that was encouraged for them.
Yeah.
Some people are in their 40s and saying, hey, I'm married, but I now want to travel alone for the first time. And I think either way, really own this desire that you have. And then once you own the desire, know that it requires vocalizing, like the right people to talk to. You know, we said parents.
Yeah.
Like, be willing to share your desire with your parents, and be willing to know that everyone will carry their own fears, but they don't necessarily have to be your fears. If your mother is worried, doesn't mean you have to be worried in the same way, and that worry has to be part of yours as well. So find your ways to reassure people in your life and update people in your life, so that you can follow through with this decision as well by getting support from them, and ask for their help and ask for their support. So many things, but I think these are like the key aspects that I would want to leave people with, and just to say, like, go do it. It's amazing. And I feel maybe you'll decide that it's not for you. And that's probably like, at least you got that clarity.
Yeah. You need to experience it.
Yeah, do it.
I think that goes to me as well. I need to experience it.
I can't wait for you.
I can't wait as well. A message for the parents to let their children
yes.
experience this.
Message for the parents: what is your fear? Is it because you didn't get the chance to do it? Oh, I'm sorry, but I feel like, I mean, maybe that will inspire you. And maybe
why not take your first solo travel?
Wow.
Why not?
Yes.
I feel like most of our parents are now done with the responsibilities. Their children are either married or they're independent, working. Take this moment, go out there, travel.
Yes.
Have space from your partners. Go solo traveling.
Experience your places. Yeah, experience the world. I think it's, the more we see the beauty, the more we connect, the richer our life gets. And I wish, parents and kids could support each other in doing that. And perhaps then they can do it together and feel happier doing it together. Because it's not always the easiest to travel with your family, but imagine that looking differently as well.
I hope you guys enjoyed our topic today, and I hope that you all, if anybody out there is thinking to travel solo, this is your moment. Go ahead, do it. Thanks for joining us for this video today. It was really great to have you here.
I had a lot of fun. Thank you.
So did I.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Keep watching our channel.
Thank you.
Please like, subscribe, comment. We'll be back soon with a new video. Thank you.